Hello, and welcome to Willow Waves, a student-produced podcast that brings together young minds to explore and discuss current events and topics that connect all of us.
Welcome back to Willow Waves. Today we're super excited to have a very special guest, Dr. Cassie. He's been working in the world of video games for over 12 years, hoping to create some of the amazing games you might have heard of, like Dark Age of Camelot, Warhammer Online, and Dungeon Keeper. Dr. Cassie has worked on all sorts of roles, like customer service to managing whole teams of video games. He's even helped lead the way to mobile games like Ultima Forever, and with all his experience, he's got some really cool stories to share about what it's like to be a video game designer and work on projects at big companies like Bioware and EA. We can't wait to learn more from him today. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Cassie.
It's super easy to take an idea and make a game. You just have to do it. So like you were playing in Roblox and actually trying to make something, do that. Just play with your ideas. Because the one thing that most people think is that ideas are great on their own. It's like, I've got this amazing idea. It's going to make so much money. And I'm like, no. The only thing that's important is if you have an idea, that you get it out of your head and you do something with it. That's the most important thing that I think anybody needs to know is just try to make your idea happen. That's worth more money, worth more to you than just having the idea. How can storytelling make it more fun? It just depends on the game. There are some games where storytelling doesn't matter, right? Like think about some of the old games like Pac-Man. What was the story of Pac-Man? Like this guy eats these dots and runs from ghosts. I'm like, come on, that's not a story, Or you play some of these games like Temple Runner, any of those endless runners, like you're just running from something. There's no real story there. Now, it is kind of fun because if you start adding stuff to it and you start giving your characters, a backstory and you give them personality and you start to create these things, people become more invested in it, which is why when they did subsequent Pac-Man started to have, Miss Pac-Man, and then you had a Pac-Man family, and then there was like all this stuff to it. But at the end of the day, story is going to be very useful, and especially games that are story-based, right? But games can be fun with bad stories, and good stories cannot make a bad game good. Does that make sense, right? Just because you have a great story, if the gameplay is kind of bad, so you have to balance them. So I think look at what your game is supposed to be, how it's supposed to be fun, and then figure out what kind of story you need. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be giant, amounts of story. It just has to be right for what the game is. How are mobile games different from PC or console? Okay. So it's interesting because, if you'd asked me this a few years ago, I would give you a different answer. But mobile phones today are pretty crazy in that they have actually a lot of memory, they have a lot of processing power, they have graphic capabilities. A lot of the phones that you can get today actually rival some PCs and some consoles. So the biggest difference in most cases today is actually the interface. If you want to think about it, right? Like if you're playing a game on your phone, you have to take into account, the shape of the device, whether you're playing it one way or the other. You have to take into account the fact that most people don't have like a joystick for their phone, right? So they have to use touch controls, and it's a small space potentially for what you can do. So you have to figure out, what can I do with this particular device compared to, say, a PC or a console, which are very, very similar these days because they both do a lot of the same things now. And a mobile phone does a lot of that, but the interface for it is very different. So I think that's the case. And one thing to consider on mobile is the size of the game matters, right? Like on a PC and with people having, really fast internet, or a home console, same thing. If you get a game and it's 30 gigabytes of game, you're like, okay. Call of Duty is like several hundred gigabytes, and it's just like, oh my gosh. If you make Call of Duty for the mobile phone, you can't do that. because they'll have to download it on their cellular or their internet, and there's only so much space on your phone. And so you have to really look at like, what is this device and the user and the way that uses it, how does that affect how your game can be done? So if you look at Call of Duty on mobile, compare that game to what you have on PC and console, you'll see they're very, very different. Now, they're actually getting darn good. It's still a pretty fun game, and it still looks pretty good because, again, phones are pretty powerful these days. Really, they had to change it to make it really function well on a phone. How do you use the virtual joystick and stuff like that? Yeah, there's quite a lot. It happens a lot, unfortunately. The one thing that's nice is we worked with massively multiplayer online games, so our game was always online before this was default for most games. If there was an issue in our game, to do what they call a hot fix and just fix it immediately, or we could release a fix that they had to download pretty quickly. And the nice thing is, PC and console and even phones to some degree have all this capability today. So if something does get messed up, it can be fixed. But in the older days, if you made a game and you put it out like on a CD, or which nobody uses anymore, or even a cartridge, like the Switch still uses cartridges and stuff like that, right? If it was messed up there, you were pretty much out of luck because you didn't have a way to fix that back in the day. But today you can do that. So yes, I did. So we had, sometimes there's things you miss when you're making a game, and sometimes players figure out how to exploit a bug, right? Like, oh, if I do this in just this way, just right here, I get this thing which causes me to get infinite gold or something, right?
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of those glitches.
Yep. And so we have to then figure that out, what they did. We have to fix it, and then sometimes take action on the people if they were using it. But yes, a very, very big part of running what we call a live game is because we had to respond to these types of things, because again, a lot of people were working together. Very different if it's a single player game where you're not hurting anybody else, but in our case, you were playing with thousands of other people.
If we wanted to make our own video game, what advice would you give us?
Well, I kind of said it earlier, just do it, right? Just start playing, kind of like you did with Roblox, right? Something and see what you can do. The really cool thing is there's a lot of programs, like we offer the Mason Game and Technology Academy, where we have summer classes and spring and fall classes for youngsters. We have a degree program in game design. Honestly, there's a lot of, videos and stuff out there to get you started. If you go and pick up like Unity, which is a very popular game engine, they have tons of tutorials, and or just playing Roblox and start making stuff and seeing what people like, seeing what people do. Like you said, you were surprised by what people did in your game. Do that. Like, that is probably the most important advice, is just start thinking about what you can do. And like I said, there's tons of free stuff for you. Like, the resources are amazing.
Thanks for joining us on the Willow Waves podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Always glad to help.
Hope you have a great day.
Bye.
All right, thanks. Take care, everybody.
And that's a wrap of today's episode of Willow Waves. What we learned is how important it is to get your ideas out there, especially when it comes to making video games. Whether you're designing buildings or sharing your creativity, you can take it far. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Bye!